Have you ever noticed that the more eager you are in a relationship, the more distant the other person seems to become? It's a perplexing pattern. You're genuinely interested, you're showing care and attention, yet the other person pulls away. Why does this happen? The answer lies not in what you're doing, but in the energy you're projecting. When you become too focused on someone, there's often an underlying energy of neediness or desperation that comes through, even if you don't intend it. This isn't about blame or judgment, it's about awareness. People, especially men, are highly attuned to the energy around them, even if they aren't consciously aware of it. When someone feels like you're too invested too quickly, it can create a sense of imbalance in the relationship. They might feel like they're being pursued or pressured, and this instinctively makes them pull back. The key to understanding this dynamic is recognizing the power of your own self-worth. When you approach a connection from a place of completeness rather than lack, the energy you project is entirely different. Think of it this way: when you're confident in who you are, you naturally radiate a sense of assurance and ease. People are drawn to this kind of energy because it feels safe and inviting, not overwhelming or clingy. Let's explore the psychology behind this a bit further. When someone perceives that you're placing a lot of your emotional well-being or happiness on them, it can feel like a burden. It's not that they don't like you or care about you, but people are naturally drawn to connections that feel balanced and reciprocal. When there's too much weight on one side of the equation, it disrupts that balance. This isn't to say you shouldn't show interest or affection. In fact, showing genuine interest is essential for building any meaningful relationship. The distinction here is to ensure your interest is grounded in authenticity and not fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough, fear of not being chosen. When fear is the driving force, it clouds your intentions and makes your actions feel less natural. Take a moment to reflect on your own behaviors. Have you ever found yourself overthinking every text you send? Analyzing every word or action for signs of approval? These patterns often stem from a place of insecurity, and they can inadvertently push people away. The irony is, the harder you try to hold on to someone, the more likely they are to slip through your fingers. So what can you do differently? The answer lies in shifting your focus inward. Rather than seeking validation or connection externally, focus on cultivating a deep sense of fulfillment within yourself. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others or become indifferent. It means you approach relationships from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Let's get practical here. Start by setting healthy boundaries for yourself. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they're about maintaining your sense of self within a relationship. When you have clear boundaries, you communicate that you value yourself and your time. This not only earns respect from others, but also ensures that you don't lose yourself in the process of trying to connect with someone else. Another key aspect is learning to think of patience. Relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, thrive when they're given the space to develop naturally. Trying to force or rush things often leads to resistance. Instead of constantly reaching out or trying to make something happen, step back and allow the other person the opportunity to come to you. This creates a dynamic of mutual interest rather than one-sided pursuit. It's also important to engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of the relationship. When your life is rich and full, you're less likely to rely on someone else to fill emotional gaps. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect or have everything figured out. It simply means prioritizing your own growth and happiness. When you're happy and whole, you attract people who align with that energy. Let me share something fascinating about how attraction works. True connection often happens when there's an air of mystery and independence. This doesn't mean playing games or being deceptive. It means maintaining your individuality and not losing sight of who you are in the process of connecting with someone else. People are drawn to those who have their own passions, interests, and purpose. On the flip side, if you're constantly available, constantly giving, and constantly trying to win someone's approval, it diminishes the natural tension that creates intrigue. When it comes to relationships, one crucial aspect often overlooked is the concept of reciprocity, not just in action but in energy. The connections we build thrive on mutual respect, shared interest, and balance. If you're giving everything while the other person invests very little, it creates an imbalance that feels off. This dynamic isn't necessarily about how much time or effort you put in, it's about the perceived equality in emotional investment. People are drawn to relationships where there's a natural flow, not one-sided effort. Think about how you approach your daily interactions. Are you showing genuine interest, or are you acting out of obligation, hoping to receive attention in return? It's easy to fall into the trap of doing more in an attempt to earn affection, but relationships don't work that way. They flourish when both parties are equally engaged, not when one person takes on the role of caretaker while the other passively receives. This is where setting healthy emotional boundaries becomes critical, not as a means to create distance, but as a way to cultivate mutual appreciation. Consider this: when you make someone the sole focus of your attention, it often signals to them that your happiness depends on their actions. This can unintentionally create pressure or make the other person feel like they're being put on a pedestal. Instead, shift your focus outward. Find joy in multiple aspects of your life: hobbies, friendships, personal growth, and let the relationship become one enriching piece of the larger picture. When your life feels full and balanced, you're less likely to seek validation from someone else. A key part of creating meaningful connections is listening not just to what's being said, but also to what's not being said. Communication is about more than words, it's about tone, body language, and presence. When you listen with curiosity instead of trying to control the outcome, you create a space where authenticity thrives. This often leads to deeper conversations and connections as the other person feels genuinely seen and valued. Think of it like this: when you chase something too intensely, it tends to move further away. But when you focus on your own path and let things unfold naturally, the right connections have a way of finding you. This brings us to an important point about mindset. The way you perceive yourself sets the tone for how others perceive you. If you see yourself as someone who is worthy of love and respect, you carry yourself differently. Your confidence isn't loud or boastful, it's quiet and unwavering. It's the kind of confidence that doesn't need external validation to thrive. So the next time you feel like someone is pulling away or ignoring you, take a step back and ask yourself, am I coming from a place of need or a place of self-assurance? Am I giving this person space to show their interest, or am I crowding them with mine? These questions aren't about self-criticism, they're about self-awareness. Ultimately, the most powerful thing you can do is focus on building a relationship with yourself. When you treat yourself with kindness, respect, and love, you set the standard for how others will treat you. Relationships aren't about completing each other, they're about complementing each other. And when you come from a place of wholeness, the connections you form are far more likely to be meaningful and lasting.